Process to Perform, helping you harness your potential on the way to greatness. I'm your host, Mike Wall. And as always, thanks for making this podcast a part of your routine. If you're enjoying it, please subscribe, like, rate, and review. If you've been listening over the last couple of weeks, routines are a crucial part of our development system. We've discussed non-negotiable character traits. We've discussed building blocks of becoming a master of your craft. We've talked with some great experts on their subject matters. And last week, we took a good crack at discovering your core convictions. This week, I had planned to talk about something that, I can't measure, but it's as obvious as the nose on your face. I'm talking about passion. Passion to be the best at what you do. Now, we were going to talk about that, but yesterday, my son and I were training, and we got after each other a little bit. We got after each other family style. There was a lot of yelling, emotion, tons of attitude. And I'm not innocent by any means. This is a two-way street. This isolation thing has been an amazing time as far as spending some quality time with both of my kids and getting some great training in. But it just feels like the air's been sucked out of the room. And I know that the pandemic is a very serious subject. And I understand that there are far more important things to talk about, but you didn't listen to this podcast to talk about those things. We talk about sports here. We talk about developing athletes. And right now, it is a great time and an opportunity to develop ourselves as athletes. It is a great time as parents, players, and coaches to improve our process. But it's also frustrating. There's nothing on TV. You can't watch ESPN. There's no La Liga. The NFL is holding the draft from their basements. It's different out there right now. Our kids can't compete against other kids. They can't test themselves. Any kid, no matter how much they love the sport and how much they like training, they're still going to want to play a game. Parents, we still want to see them. We want to be around other parents. We want to talk about what's going on in their lives, what's going on with their kids. It's a social thing as well, as much as anything else. And in my family, it does. It feels like the air's been sucked out of the room a little bit. And, couple that with the fact that my son and I are very much alike and that we both have kind of short fuses and short memories. So we never hold grudges and we're not mad for very long, but we can get fired up pretty quick. And so there's going to be days like there was yesterday. The hardest part about being an ex-anything is that we don't remember our own history like it probably happened. Not every day was a good day or a focus day. Pops, my dad, I call him Pops, he has to remind me every once in a while that sometimes I stood on the mound looking like I'd checked out 2 innings before. And it happens. It happens to everyone. And while we don't want those we care about to falter, well, that happens too. Every once in a while, we need to remember why we do all of this. Why sports play such a big part in all of our lives. And for a small amount of the audience, it is literally a way of life. It's a career, to some extent an identity, at least an external identity. And it's the driver of most of our decisions, at least for a period of time. I remember for about 15 years, every decision I made was based off of where I could train, when I could eat again, how I could keep preparing, how I'd be ready for the week of practice or the game. I remember pulling my wife out of a trip to Italy. Now, great, we were on a trip to Italy, but I made my wife leave. It was a 10-day trip. I made her leave on day 7 because I was freaking out about losing weight before the season started. But you're happy to do it. You're happy to do all of it. Sports are so much fun. Someone recently asked me, why put together this podcast or the blog? I've been writing a blog for parents and players to help keep developing while we're all in isolation. Why put it out? Just keep it to yourself. You got your family, you've got a couple close friends. And the truth is, I just love it. Sports gave me direction. It taught me life lessons. It got me through bad times. If I can help anyone experience just a little bit of what I was able to, man, bring it on. I can experience an entire range of emotion in just one sporting event, highs and lows. Reality TV in America is huge, but people could be out there playing, coaching, and cheering on. Experiencing arguably the best representation of our society as a whole. And I'm not for a second suggesting the athletic competitions are anything other than a really great distraction from the rest of your day, but that's why we love it. That's why most of us dream to make it the rest of our day. Sports give you some memories that you hold on for the rest of your life. I can remember the first time I dunked in a basketball game. I remember the first time I got dunked on in a basketball game. I'll never forget the mixtapes we made for high school warm-ups, or the first time my name got called running out the tunnel at Lambeau Field. I'll never forget my dad standing down the left field fence line watching my games away from the other parents. I'll never forget the first time I made my way down there when my daughter was playing soccer for the first time. Probably the best sports story I have isn't even mine. It was the night that the Packers played the Raiders after Brett's dad passed away. I get emotional just thinking about it. I've never been around anything like that before or since. And I remember he got up and he said he was going to play because that's what his dad would have wanted. And the rest of the team was so supportive in that moment, and really the entire organization. I remember the time in the locker room before the game. It was almost eerie. It wasn't loud like normal. And we had a pretty chilled out locker room. I mean, Brett was one of those guys that he taught me. I mean, one of the biggest lessons I took away from four was that if you were a really good player, you didn't have to like go crazy and bang your head against the wall. You could just be good, and that was okay. And you could joke around and you could have fun because you knew that you were focused. In the time to focus, you were ready to go. You had prepared. You'd done the work. So you didn't need to put on this kind of macho thing. You weren't acting like the tough guy. Like, you were the tough guy. That's what he brought, and that's what he brought to every guy in that locker room. And so that night, it wasn't as loud as it usually was, but I swear if you had a Geiger counter in there, I mean, that place was lit up. And you knew, if you knew four, you knew he was going to show up. I mean, sports meant something to that guy, and the relationship that I know that he had with his dad was, sports was a huge part of that relationship. So to honor him, he was going to be there that night. He was going to make plays. But for the first and only time, maybe in my career, every single guy showed up that night. I mean, our guys were making plays that just don't get made against NFL football teams. They were more open than they should have been. They were making circus catches left and right. It was a complete rout, and the Oakland Raider fans cheered our guys that night. Raider Nation took the night off to appreciate something a little bigger than a non-conference matchup. You know, I remember meeting my best friend, really my brother, in Vegas. He was the only guy who wouldn't quit on my training regime. I had a great deal going with Mark Philippi. He was the head strength coach at UNLV, and at the time he was competing in the World's Strongest Man, so he had the best gear in town. And I could train down with all of his equipment and resources during the offseason, but I had to allow guys that he thought had potential going in the NFL to train with me. And my deal was, well, if they can keep up, they can train. I like training more than playing. I mean, it was my way of separating myself. And so every time he sent me someone, I'd just pick an exercise like car pushing or log pressing, and I just wear the new guy out until he quit. And then one day this guy walks through and he's in flip-flops and cut-off shorts, and he's wearing a man satchel. And he stops and he stares at me because I'm trying to figure out how to lift up one of those heavy kegs. I'd never lifted one before, and I'm just I've been spending about 20 minutes going after it, and I have no idea why I can't get it overhead. At this point, I'm 300 pounds. I'm strong. I should be able to do this. So this guy walks over. He drops his satchel. He picks up the keg from opposite corners, and in one motion, he lifts it to his chest and then overhead. I mean, he's cold. He's just walking through going to class. So he puts it down, tells me to have a good rest of the day. He picks up his bag, and he walks away. And so that was the first time I met Coach, and we trained together for years. We had some really great times. He's the kind of guy, he dropped everything and came down to California to help me train for my last year after I blew up my shoulder for the second time. And, guys like that you just don't meet if you're not both half crazy about this thing, about preparing and trying to be the best you can be. And now that I've seen it from every perspective, I've seen it from a player, parent, and coach perspective, I'm not sure what I like more, playing, that preparation that we talked about, or watching my two go out and trying to do it the best they can. When my kids started playing competitive soccer, it was probably 18, 24 months ago, we came out to California for summer on vacation. We were living in Florida. And I told them we were going to live like pro athletes for 4 weeks. And I don't know what they were thinking. They were probably thinking there's something glamorous about that, a life of leisure. Nope. We trained strength and footwork in the morning, followed by a skill session. We ate breakfast and we relaxed. We went for a run. We watched a soccer game during lunch. We jumped in the ocean. We trained again. Dinner. Trained some skill at night. Early to bed. Early up the next morning doing it again. Not glamorous. Hard work. Every day. But guess what? Kids loved it. The routine became something to look forward to. They saw the improvement that dedicated practice brought with it. I think they saw opportunity. And that's really what is so great about sports. We see hope, opportunity, a chance to be more than we are at the moment. It got to the point where even on the days off, my kids would be asking, okay, when are we going to go out and train? When are we going to get that session? And we got to get at least one session in today, Dad, because you start seeing it. Once it becomes kind of part of your DNA, part of your routine, it's almost like you're missing a meal. And I know that sounds crazy for a lot of families. I mean, I have a good friend, a very successful guy, great family, athletic kids, wonderful wife. He's always on me about, why would anybody spend time pursuing high-level sports when you could just as easily put that time into a trade and become wildly successful? And that's a scenario that's much more likely to happen. And objectively, probably he's right. But how do you pour your passion into something you don't love, especially when you're young? I mean, think about the lessons. Here's my counter argument. Think about the lessons that you learn from putting your heart into something. Patience, perseverance, dedication, and discipline. These are all traits that will serve you well in the likely event that sports don't work out. We always hear that sports are such a small part of your overall lives, and that's right. If you took if you took a piece of paper, put 100 notches on it, spread it across your room, and you took that little space between 17 and 32, if you're lucky, that's the amount of time. You black out that space. That's the amount of time you're playing competitive sports. 15 years, maybe. I mean, if you're lucky. More realistically, take the time between 21 and 24, 23 even. I mean, it's a short career, so go for it. You have 70 years to make up the time. If this is what you're passionate about, if this is what you want to do and you have the means to do it, give it your best shot. I've been very lucky to meet all types of sports families. Families with the disinterested parents to the families that are running a full-time academy through their house. I mean, we've seen all types, everything in between. And success is bred from every type of background, and no two paths are alike. And I would just say this. We have discussed life skills on Process to Perform that sports and supportive environments can develop. Things like confidence and presence, mental toughness and perseverance, leadership. If you or someone you care about wants to be great, let them be great. Help them become the absolute best they can be, whatever level that is. The absolute number one best thing about sports is that wherever you are, whatever level you're competing at, that is the best place to be at that moment, in that time. You can be walking out of the tunnel at Lambeau Field. You can be competing in the Olympics. You could be playing early on Friday night on the JV team. Or you could be waking up early with your parents on Saturday morning, driving 90 minutes for the 8 a.m. kickoff of a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-old soccer game. At that moment, there's nothing more important than showing up and giving it your best you can, and that's what we love about it. And I think that really sums it up for me. Wherever we've been, in whatever environment, it has been such a treat to compete, or watch my two compete, or watch the men I have worked with compete against others with equal skill and just as much on the line. And I really can't think of anything I'd rather be doing. And I know there's more important things to discuss, especially now, and I know there's more important things to worry over. And I know that there's objectively no reason that Maddox and I should be going at it on a Monday morning over a soccer ball. But I'll take it. I'll take all of it. And to those of you who feel the same way, let's remember that we will make mistakes and we will have bad days. We will falter. But we do this because we love it. And we want to give ourselves and our loved ones and the people that we care about and work with the opportunity to reach their goals, live their dreams, and find those ceilings. So, hey, thanks for listening. This is Process to Perform. Next week, we'll be back with a whole new podcast. Have a good weekend, everybody.